Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Do Resources Talks Early Childhood. This is one of our most casual episodes because we are tired, particularly tired in our brains from being at a conference and learning a lot, and thinking hard. So I'm so excited to be here with a colleague of mine, Courtney Gardner, who is the operator director
Yeah.
from Community Playschool in Baltimore, Maryland. And we have been friends for years. We first met at a conference in Roseville, and we've gone to conferences in Florida and South Carolina and Maryland and Roseville.
Halifax.
And now Halifax, exactly. So I have followed Courtney's program through Facebook. So there's of course, a business page, a public page called Courtney Community Playschool, and love looking at the photos and images of the types of activities that take place, and I have always found them intriguing. I feel like your curriculum or your approach is further along the evolutionary track to what I want to achieve. So I was so excited last month, 2 months ago,
In April, yeah.
to go and visit and see the environment firsthand, because you think that pictures are compelling and supposedly a picture is worth 1,000 words, but actually being there and feeling the energy of the place. Of course, I also got to see children in action. Was very different than the photos. I mean, the photos are amazing, go like the page, but being there and in watching the children actually experience that level of freedom. So I know that a lot of things that you and I go to, a lot of conferences or sessions, talk about creating a culture of saying yes to children. So I really think that Community Playschool has a culture of saying yes to children. So would you be able to sort of share with us what you think about that?
Sure. I agree. I think that is a big part of who we are. I think if we break that down a little bit, what it means is that we are responding to children's needs, and that often means saying yes. We want to support children and their ideas and their interests and their power. So I love that you get that feeling from our place. It's something that we're working really hard to achieve. There's always work to do, but I think we've changed and grown a lot over the last year or so. I think we're a very different program than we were 2 or 3 years ago, and hopefully we'll keep evolving.
So I don't know if you ever have, I'm going to use the phrase, naysayers. Any naysayers that visit. I mean, from what you've shared with me, it sounds to me even like your licensing people come and they really get it and understand. And they're, I don't know, maybe it's like the luck of the licensor. I don't know. But if you ever have any naysayers, for people who haven't visited your program, they might say, I mean, we all have, even though my program isn't anything yet like your program, because it's a path, it's an evolution. I mean, I think that the program that I work at does in many ways, compared to a lot of programs, is a culture of saying yes, but it's a continuum, it's a spectrum. And so you're definitely further along the spectrum than I am. But if these naysayers come to your program or mine, and they might at my program say, I can't believe the children are in bare feet, they should have shoes on, because the fire bell might go off and they need shoes on, or I can't believe they're on a swing inside, or things like that, or you're using real tools, any of those kinds of things. So some of the naysayers may say, if they were to visit your program, this is chaos,
Sure.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first I have to back up and say that we do not have some kind of magical licensing specialist. In fact, we've had a very difficult time with licensing pushing back. And I think we've built a relationship with our licensing specialist at this point. I think she's been our specialist for a few years now. We've had a few since we opened. We've been around for 7 years. But she's starting to get to know us and to build some trust with us. And I spend a lot of time explaining and justifying the reasons why we do the things we do. And I think that when she sees how intentional we are and that the things that are happening are not because we're not paying attention or we don't care or we're not considering children's health and safety, when it's not about that, when she sees that we have made conscious choices to let children do the things that they do, I think it's built a relationship and some trust between us. And so this last time that she visited was was absolutely the smoothest visit that we've ever had. And we were fully ourselves. It was a surprise visit. We were doing all the things we do every day. And she had some questions and some concerns. She asked us to make a few changes, but they were very slight. And I feel like we were working together to make sure kids got what we believe they deserve. So that, just to sort of say, we don't have some special licensing person
that's a good thing
is
to
like
say.
way cooler than everybody else's licensing person. We don't. In fact, she does not come from an early childhood background. She's flat out told me she comes from a corporate background. So there was some collaborating and training that had to happen between myself and our specialist. So anyway,
I love that. I love that you said that, because in the 20 years at our program, Kids Early Learning in Halifax, we've had a lot of licensing officers as well. Well, in addition to that, they've changed their title 7 bazillion times. So currently they are licensing officers. But so we've had many of them, but the current one we have, just like you just said, it is, you do have to, like if anybody doesn't already have a relationship, you do have to develop a relationship with them, because you sometimes you have to really advocate for your vision, for your values, for your, the approach you're taking. Just because things are regulations doesn't mean you can't have a dialogue about what the children need and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I would equate it to the relationships we have with children and the trust that we build, and we can allow children to take more risks. The sort of more we know them and the more we build trust between adults and children. And I think the same kind of goes for licensing. The more she trusts my intentions and sees my vision, the more she's sort of letting go of some ideas she had about what was right or wrong. And I said at some point, I remember saying we met in the middle by the end of the visit. But I think the thing that was exciting was that we didn't really meet in the middle. I established the boundaries and created the middle, and she was willing to meet me there. It was a different middle than maybe it had been in the past. And I don't feel that I really had to compromise very much. Really, we had to push a few mats, a few inches over. And I think we had to fill in a hole on the playground that was gathering water, still water. That's pretty great. I mean, we've been cited in the past for improper use of furniture. We've been cited for
that's my favorite.
Doing harm because a child had his shoes off in October, and where we live, that's a lovely warm time of year. The mornings are cool, the afternoons are warm.
So the citation was doing harm?
Yeah, because his feet could have been cold, and he may not have the wherewithal to tell us, so it falls on us to decide if a child's feet are hot or cold. But I have to say, I had both of those things removed. I argued about them. I stood my ground. I explained that, the thing that a child was jumping off of, the improper use of furniture, was a piece of furniture that we had designated as a community as a jumping place. And it took some talking to the supervisor and arguing my case, but ultimately those things were removed from our report. So I feel super proud of that. It gave me some confidence. And I think then with the next visit, I sort of kept pushing back, and I think we're getting to a good place. So you talked about naysayers, and certainly people look at photographs. It happened this weekend, someone mentioned. You know, they loved all of the big body play and the risk taking and the climbing and the jumping, but they wondered about the children who didn't want to do that, who wanted solitude or quiet or wanted focus. And you know, there's room for that. It's just not in the, those are not the things that often compel me to take a photograph. But those things exist in our program, just like jumping and climbing. And there are quiet spaces and secret places for children. There are spaces that are only fit to children. There are dark places. There are bright places. There are all kinds of different kinds of places in our space. And so that was one of the things that is one of the things that we've had some pushback about. Also, the level of risk taking that we let children do.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I think if people walk in mid-year and see what we're doing, sometimes they think it looks really scary. We don't start that way in September. We build relationships. We get to know kids. The children help to build the things that they're jumping off of.
Yes, that's amazing.
And so they're building to their size. They're not building beyond, you know, their build where they can jump or climb. You know, they can only build as high as their arms reach above their head. You know, the ladders and the things that we add those as we feel kids are ready for them. You know, we don't lift children into high places. They have to get there on their own.
So your program is not open all year long.
No.
So it's like September to June. And so what you just said that they build, and if you come mid-year, you see different than you would earlier. So in September, is it like a blank slate? Like,
yeah,
you know, are all these structures that they built the previous
they're reduced
year?
Definitely. We change things for the new groups in the fall. You know, climbing structures exist, but they're, you know, sort of low platform style, and there are fewer materials out. You know, we don't have tools out on the first day. You know, we work our way up to that. You know, at the beginning of our school year, children are in their groups with their teachers. The doors aren't open. They're not free to move through the building independently. Eventually, we get to that. Usually, so far, we have every year. I mean, every group's different, so it could be different next year. You know, we cover a lot of the painting that the kids do in the space, the on the walls and the structures, so that kids have more of a blank canvas to work with. The new children can sort of apply themselves to the environment. Some things stay, but
so cover the paintings, as in paint over the paintings. Yes. Mm-hmm. So that brings us to something that after I shared photos from my trip to your program, that some people had, there were two main things that they had a lot of feedback on the photos. Technically three, but one was, so the first one was that the children paint on the walls, because they can technically paint on any surface.
Yeah,
like their bodies,
right.
The walls, the like the structures.
Those things belong to them, so they can paint on them if they want to.
So people were like, "How is that possible? How can you permit that?" You know, children, of course, will go home and they will paint on the walls at home. And how can children, when you're modeling and those kinds of things. So you can speak to these in a second. I'll tell you the other two things. Another thing was shelves, that there had been a set of shelves on the wall. And when I was there, children were on the top of the shelves.
They're 5 feet tall, by the way, just to give people some perspective.
And so they were they were having an incredible time on the top of the shelves. And the other thing, it was very obvious to me that was a very important space to them. The last thing was not quite as quite as kind of thing from people, which I didn't go. I more was like, whoa. Was I had taken photographs of different things in the environment, and there was a container of what it looked like maybe it was like a sock that had been stuffed.
Mm-hmm.
And I had said, when I was there, I said, what are these? And I was informed those are whackers. And I was like, huh? And what they are is for children to hit with, to whack things, or to whack
each other mostly, not
each other.
Things a little bit.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, those are cool because I felt them, I looked at them, I thought about them, I pondered them. And I mean, some people have pool noodles for children to whack because children love to whack. And I sort of thought these would be better whackers than pool noodles. Yeah.
I mean, it serves the same purpose. You know, we were watching what children were doing. We really noticed that there were some children in the room that really wanted to push and shove and smack. And everyone was having fun, but we were a little bit worried that, you know, that their hand is too hard. And they mostly did it in the mat area, but, you know, other places too. So one of the teachers stuffed a few like big soccer socks full of other socks and said, why don't you guys try this? And they loved it. And so, you know, we really thought about like, what are they doing? What is the thing about this that is interesting to them? Like, what are they looking for? And they weren't looking to hurt each other. In this case, sometimes kids are interested in hurting each other. That was not the case here. They were interested in playing a game where they pushed and shoved and smacked and hit. And they laughed and they fell down, and it was a big fun time. And adding the whacker kept the game going because you're less likely to really get hit so hard that it hurts, and then you don't want to play the game anymore. And so I think children do things to keep the game going, and we felt like as adults this was important, what they were doing, and we wanted to offer some things that could help keep the game going. So what was the other thing? Oh, the shelf. That's a big story. Do you want to hear the shelf story?
Sure. I think people would love to hear the shelf story if you want to share it.
Sure.
It could be a follow-up episode if you don't want to.
I guess if it's too long, we'll cut it out. So we moved into a new building over the summer. We'd been in our old space for 6 years, and our landlord was selling the building. So we were very lucky to find another space that we would fit into, and some things about it were very different than our old space, and some things were different and wonderful and more outside space and more green space. But anyway, so we were building new classrooms, which was kind of a fun opportunity, a little daunting. And the classroom that would have the oldest group, one of the teachers in that group and I had talked a bit about centers.
Like learning.
Like a science area and an art area and a housekeeping area. And we were sort of, I guess, troubling with that idea. Like, we really feel strongly that if an environment is working, children feel comfortable moving materials throughout the space, right? That it's not that you just play with blocks in a construction area or housekeeping. Like, we really want children to use the whole space. So why are we putting the materials in these groups? And then they're not used there, and then they're returned there at the end of the day. And so there were some organizational reasons, like just so you know where things are. We thought about that, and we thought these children have been with us, most of them, for 2 or 3 years. They're very good at playing and sort of being at school and taking charge, being independent, sort of, exercising agency. So we decided to get some nice, big, sturdy shelves, attach them to the wall, and put all of the materials on a wall full of shelves. We put tables and rugs and other sorts of things like that out in the main space so that children could take things where they wanted them. We also went into it, feeling strongly that children should be able to also move the tables and rugs and things and put them where they wanted them to be.
Mm-hmm.
So we really wanted them to feel ownership of the space. And we had this funny conversation at the beginning. I think the shelves, I was sort of shaking them and holding them to make sure they were steady. And I said to the teacher, make sure these are, we need to make sure these are really firmly attached to the wall because they're going to climb them. They're 5 feet high and probably 8 feet wide.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much. Aren't they the whole expanse of the wall?
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
They're metal shelving with like a press board shelf and probably 2 feet deep, maybe a little deeper. And the teacher said, "Oh no, there won't be climbing on the shelves. Those are for the materials, and we'll put the teacher things along the top, like the gallons of paint and our notebooks and roll books and things like that. And we have some little wooden stools, and kids will be able to stand on those to get some of the higher shelves, so we can, offer more materials." So weeks passed, children came in, they started using the materials, moving things around, kind of using the space in the way we thought they might, but it was a little different. So a few weeks into school, I was giving a tour, and I walked into this classroom, and one boy was pulling everything off of the shelves and saying, "Let's make a mess. Let's make a mess." And other kids were joining in, and they were playing this game. And the teacher said, "It's Messy Lab," which I thought was wonderful. It's like they're doing something. Let's stop. And, that group, that team of teachers had decided we're really going to let them do what they want to do and for as long as we can. Like we're gonna try to say yes. They made it sort of this goal.
So I'm not keep your place in the story.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be like interrupting for the sake of being rude, but I want to emphasize for anyone watching this video that for anyone who is unaware of like the whole thought processes behind creating a culture of saying yes to children, that, your whole center is a culture of saying yes, but that team really this year said, like, this is going to be, like, every moment, this is what we're going to keep drawing ourselves back to.
Yeah.
So just to, and the shelves really, the whole center, like, you need to visit the whole place because it's this amazing culture of yes, but the shelves are the most amazing analogy for it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, they are. I think, so what happened next was the kids were not interested in putting the stuff back. They were not interested in, the teachers put it all back, and the kids pulled it all off again. And so at that point, the teachers got some shelving out and really put sort of more traditional areas back into the classroom, and the kids started climbing the shelf. And they started climbing up into it with books and toys. They started treating it almost, I was calling it Japanese apartment buildings, because they would get in on their bellies face to face, and they would talk in this like private little cubby. And kids would go to the very top, 5 feet off the ground, with books and read books to each other and look at books with each other. And other kids just climbed it. They just were interested in going in and out of it all the time. And, children were drawing up there. It just offered, I believe, like a different view of the room, which was interesting to kids. I think they wanted to get high and kind of look at where they were from a different perspective. And it offered a place to climb. And at that point, we didn't really have climbing structures built in the rooms yet. That hadn't happened. And so some children were like climbing up a shelf or two and jumping off. Children were tying things and weaving fabric and rope and yarn around. They were using tape on the shelf, like blocking off sections with tape. So that went on for months, and it was amazing. And
that's, again, not to interrupt to be rude, but again, that's how can you emphasize the fact that as educators, as that whole thing of calling ourselves teachers or educators or whatever, instructors, it's so, with young children, we're not there to just constantly impart facts and content information. We are there to support their interests, to act as a resource. And so your staff, like we're not used to the fact that, like, if a child says, "What is this?" It's like an adult thing because of regular conversations with other adults, the desire to immediately answer and to immediately provide the information because we have agendas. We need to move on to the next thing. We have a different understanding of time. And so when you say that that took months, because you were letting it become organic and you were letting the children develop in their own time and at their own pace, and you were busy giving them the things, making sure there was rope and tape and all those kinds of things for it to happen. And, you know, maybe an adult might be thinking, oh my God, really? Are they taping the shelf again? Like, how many times can they tape a shelf? Oh, here's some more tape. Courtney, you got to buy some more tape.
Yeah,
and
I had to buy some more tape.
Right.
I bought cases of tape. And I think I want to make it clear that this wasn't easy for the adults. This was difficult. There was a lot of turmoil between the grown-ups. Like, is this too much? Has this gone too far? It's hard for us to walk through the room. There's so much stuff everywhere. Can everyone find materials that they need? I mean, children were searching through piles to find things. Children were playing with magnetiles on the floor because the tables had all been pushed over to climb up onto the shelves. I mean, it wasn't just, bliss. It was difficult, but it felt worth it. And the people who were inconvenienced were not the children. They were very flexible and patient and open about this process. It was difficult for the adults, and we felt, I think, like, it was worth it, as I said.
So it wasn't willy-nilly. It wasn't, I think the other thing earlier, you said the word intentional. And when we were talking about working with the licensor, you had to explain intention, constantly explaining that. And I love that word. There's intentionality to it. Yeah. And it was hard, like, for the adults to constantly take a step back mentally, possibly physically as well. I don't know. Like, as you determined how capable the children were on the shelves, maybe you're actually physically stepping back, but mentally stepping back to support it.
Right. Yeah. We were stepping in, sometimes physically getting closer as children figured out this new challenge. But I think, the mess that this made, for starters. So that was the first thing. I think, the culture of our school lends itself to acknowledging and, what's the word I want to use? Honoring behavior that maybe others see as negative. And we work very hard to think, to believe that children do things for good reasons, and that pulling things off a shelf isn't just naughty. Children are doing something, they're thinking about something, they're working on something when they do that. And maybe it's working on making a mess. But that's valuable, I think. It could be. It's certainly worth letting it go for a while to see what it turns into. And so things like making a mess or writing on the walls, children made beautiful art on the walls and had amazing conversations with each other about what they were doing. On Valentine's Day this year, a little boy and girl climbed up on one of the climbing structures and painted on the wall. And they talked to each other about Valentine's Day and about love and about how it was beautiful. And we did that. That happened. We didn't do it. Adults didn't do it. That happened. And one of the reasons that happened is because I believe we weren't making Valentines in school, right? Like, we weren't interrupting what kids were doing. These kids have been, like, building up to doing that for quite some time. And it happened to be, interestingly, on Valentine's Day that we noticed them really focused on painting a corner of the room with very particular intentional colors that they chose because they had Valentine's Day in mind. Like,
That's pretty mind blowing.
it was for us.
It should be for everyone. It really should be for everyone. And if there's any chance that, I mean, the purpose of these videos, the purpose of these interviews is for me, my intention with these videos, speaking of intention, is to talk to other early childhood educators, other people in our field that might be presenters or authors, to talk about things that we all need to really think about, whether they're local people, people who've inspired me, people who are making me think, people I want to argue with. Like, people, my team, 3 of my team visited your program. And they said, "So, are we going to be letting the children paint on the wainscoting that we just got last year, kind of thing?" And I said, "I got to think about it." And I'm thinking about it. But I do love the idea of a culture of yes. And we at our program have, like I said, on the spectrum, we have a culture of yes. We're not there, but we're way more along than others. And it's a path for all of us. We all have to think about it. And in your staff, your team had moments of struggle with it. You said that. You shared that.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what it's about. So on the off chance that some parents are watching this, what you just described about Valentine's Day, when you think about the value and the depth of engagement and interaction that those children were having between that and the experience of them trotting in with little Valentine's Day cards that say on the back, like, "To my friend, from my friend," or whatever, and putting them in little paper bags. And I'm not trying to be dismissive or insulting about anything like that, because that can be very much, like some of us have beautiful memories of, like, every year your parent taking you to the store, or maybe you made them at home. We're not knocking homemade ones either, but whether it was, going to the store and like, "Mom, could I please have the Barbie Valentine's or the Batman or the whatever?"
I mean, what that makes me think is, when you were talking, I really wanted to say, but every community is different. And painting on the walls happened to be something that happened in our community, and it's very specific to the people in that room every day together and the relationships they have with each other. And I'm not advocating for everybody to have their children paint on the walls. That's not the point. Like, the stuff that we have in our room, that is not what it's about. It's about the relationships and the freedom that we try to offer children. And I think everyone can build relationships and can find ways to help children feel freedom. And it doesn't mean you have to paint on the walls, and it doesn't mean that you have to let children climb on the shelves. But you have to think about what it means for the people, your specific people.
Yes.
So, all of our classrooms didn't do those things. It's not like school-wide we had decided we're painting on the walls. It happened with specific children who were interested in something, doing something, that was specific to them. I want that to be really clear. It's not about the things we have, and it's not about, the specific opportunities that we offer. It's about the freedom and the relationships, I think.
Okay. So I just want to finish my thought. So relative to the Valentine thing, I wasn't trying to zoom in on that. What I was trying to say was that if any parents are watching, sometimes people are like, they might be so focused on the children should be writing their alphabet, or the children should be, delivering Valentines to each other, because we need to tell each other that we're friends and that we love each other and that we share and all those kinds of things. Those are things that, as parents, and we are both parents, that we want our children to be productive, caring individuals. And so society has somehow delivered the message that the way that children become caring people, knowledgeable people, competent people is by like writing the ABCs, giving each other Valentines, hugging, saying I'm sorry, when we have learned and what we know as a profession, which is research supported. Like, this is not, we're not just, Richard Nixon may have said that we all are born, women are born knowing how to care for children. This is really involved. Our field is involved. There's all this history behind our field, and we know that the way children learn these things is through being these people. So by hitting each other with whackers, and then when somebody does actually get hurt, probably not from the whackers, but from tripping and falling or something, a child who was just whacking someone else goes over and helps this other child up. Like, well, stop whacking me. I gotta go help Joe over here. And they help Joe up, and they say, are you okay? That same child that was just whacking someone, because they have developed empathy and those things. And have they developed because we've been going around behind them saying, you know, say you're sorry, say you're sorry. Oh, gentle hands, gentle hands, love gentle hands. And again, not ridiculing that, because we're all on our own paths. But as a parent, do you not want your child to have a deeper understanding of concepts? And so the beautiful experience you described on Valentine's Day, it was a fluke that it was Valentine's Day. But that expression was so much more deep because you had this supportive environment that supported the relationships becoming deeper with each other. I don't know, like, you know, I can go on and rant and be on a tangent, but I just think that we all, parents and educators, should be really trying to, I mean, you made the comment at the conference, right? There were these beautiful glossy pictures of food. And I do, you know, even though I think you're so much more evolved in your philosophical approach than I am, and I'm getting my head around it, you know, but I think both you and I would have, in our careers, taken the glossy pictures of the food and hung the beautiful free, you know, you gotta love free, glossy pictures of the food up with, you know, probably cut out letters that say, like, this food helps us grow, nutritious food. Now, where I'm at, I would probably, because it's free, I'm going to take it back to the center. I'll probably put it like on the shelf in the art area or whatever. You know, it might wind up going to the, you know, because it doesn't have to stay there, but it might wind up going to the block area because maybe they're making a store, or maybe they're just putting pictures of fruit out to drive cars on, whatever. And then you made the comment, which we chuckled over, but I thought it speaks to the same message, which is that if you want children, how can children really know about food and good food? And you said,
I think I said the best way to learn about food is to have some food.
Which I love that. I did. It's great.
I mean, it's not like something that, I mean, I can see like having a photograph of an elephant, because children don't have regular access to an actual elephant.
What? You don't bring in elephants in your program?
But an apple or some pasta, why would you give them a photograph of that? I assume that children have apples and pasta in their lives, and isn't it, I mean, I think that comes from that great apple thing that Bev and Michael used to do, where they offered a real apple and you experience it and talk about all the things you learn about an apple from actually biting into it and holding it, or you know, a photo of an apple, and then even worse, like a black line sort of worksheet with A in the lines.
Yes.
Like, where, in which arena are you learning more about an apple? And learning something you're going to like hold with you as you grow and mature. And it's the real thing. And I mean, that's really the point of that comment was, children have access to all of the things in these pictures. Why not offer a like real experience with them?
Yeah. Yeah, we had a parent night, and I have no idea if I've told you this or not, but it was not a setup. It was not a setup at all. Um, the topic, of course, not surprisingly, was the hotbed topic is school readiness, right? How are you getting the kids ready for school? How are you getting the kids ready for school? And so I didn't respond with, we get them ready for life. We don't get them ready for school, even though that's the real answer. And the other thing is, which I don't even think we get them ready for life. They're always getting ready for life. So my thoughts are different now. And then, of course, the other response is that schools need to get ready for children, not the other way around. But, of course, the other thing is a lot of times parents think a parent night is more legitimate if you have guest speakers, because if you're the one speaking about things, well, it's your program. Of course, we need to listen to someone else, da da da, because they're skeptical. So that particular night, I did have a guest speaker. She was a school teacher at in the neighborhood where our program is, and it was a neat experience because she not only had her bachelor's of education and her master's of education, but she also had a bachelor of child study, which in Nova Scotia is a 4-year early childhood program. So she's just one of these people who, and I didn't really think about the credentials in that manner. She had been my daughter's primary teacher, which might be kindergarten where you are, whatever, right? The first year of elementary school. So I asked her, because she seemed like she had been a wonderful primary teacher for Danielle, if she'd come and speak to the parents about what should they be thinking about with regards to getting their children, like what do children need to be ready for. So, but I was grumpy that I had to find a guest speaker, right? So I thought to myself, well, I'm going to speak first. And I'm going to say, like, this is what's happening right now in this room. The children are very interested in this, and this is what's important in this room. This is their room, and this is what they're interested in. And I was going to try to convey, without being disrespectful to them or my guest, who I was happy to have, that this is the real important information for the evening. Oh, and by the way, while you're having these refreshments, here's this person.
Another perspective.
Yes. So the interesting thing was that the children were very, 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 very absorbed with, I'm going to say, the children did not say at any point in time, we are fascinated by metamorphosis. That's what I was thinking they were fascinated by. The kids were saying things like, this changes, this looks different. So we had observed and paid attention and came to the realization that change was fascinating them. So in the room, we wound up, and I'm not making this up. This is going to sound like I made this up. So we had some mealworms, which they change often. They go through all their stages, larva, pupa, whatever. We also had, you can't make this stuff up. At that point in time, we were permitted to have an incubator and chicken eggs. So we had, now we're not allowed to do that anymore because salmonella or whatever. Not that that ever happened, but constant rules. So that was in there, and some of the eggs had hatched. So here we have this parent night. So we've got some mealworms in the room. We've got some eggs hatching in the room. It gets crazier, but it's a really good story. So I'm telling the parents about all that, and then our guest speaker starts to speak, Eileen Millett, and she starts to speak about if you want your children to be ready, and she had never been at our program, ever. She knew me because I had had my kid in her class. So she says, the children who are in this room will be more ready for my class than other children who come to me. and she had never been to our program, and she said children who've sat down and they've written the word egg and they know to make EGG are nowhere near as ready as children in this room, because children in this room have held an egg, have seen an egg warmed, rotated, hatch, and crack open with a baby chick. And the look on her face, she could not believe that the children were experiencing this and had held a chick and all those kinds of things. And she said, these children in this room know what an egg is. But the child who has been at home with their parent simply writing EGG over and over and over again does not necessarily know egg, right? They don't know egg. And it was fascinating. Like, she was so excited about our program. And it's the same as the Bev and Michael Apple thing, right? Yeah. And it also is Bev's thing. It has to be in the hand, the body, and the heart before it can be in the brain. So the last part of the evening was, so we discussed it even more, but it was so amazing to experience that. But over in the corner, there were the most bizarre noises in the corner of the room. So we had a bunny rabbit in the room. And a couple, I don't know how many weeks before, we had a sleepover. And another classroom has a bunny. And at that sleepover, those two bunnies had been loose. And they don't usually spend time together. And they had spent time together.
We'll say.
And we were reading a bedtime story. I was reading a bedtime story. And the two bunnies happened to hop towards each other in this room. And they decided to have a bit of an activity. And so the children were very engaged in the bedtime story. And so thankfully, they were not looking at the bunny's activity. And we were like, oh my goodness, in our minds, we were drawing their attention there. So here we are, let's fast forward to the parent night, and we're hearing these noises in the corner, and Dora the bunny was giving birth to baby bunnies. We had not known she was expecting. So during this conversation, I had just talked to the parents about how the children were so enthralled with change.
Oh my gosh. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll direct your attention to the corner.
I know. It was weird. It was weird. And it's nowhere near as compelling, as far as I'm concerned, it's nowhere near as compelling as your, children painting on walls and children climbing on shelves.
That's pretty compelling, really. I think that's pretty compelling.
It was pretty
Live
neat.
birth.
It was
in the classroom.
It was pretty neat. It was pretty neat, and
I think we should stop here.
Yeah,
take a break.
Yeah,
and we'll maybe resume the conversation.
It was neat. Yeah, and I think the only other thing I had wanted to say about the shelves was just that as the months went by, you also eventually had holes in the shelves.
Yeah, we cut out openings in some of the shelves so the children could move through the shelving unit, because they had started pushing the shelving out so that they could make some of the shelving areas sort of double height. And so over the weekend, the teachers replaced the press board with plywood, and they cut shapes out of it so that the children could pop up and down through it, just to sort of add a different dimension. And that was really a child-led thing. The children started trying to change the shelf, and the adults sort of stepped in to help them sort of get the desired effect. And, I'm really looking forward to seeing what the new group of kids does with that piece of furniture.
And hopefully all of us who follow your photos and your page, and because we'll all be interested too. I'll have to make sure when I post this to also post a link to your program, because that way everybody can be fascinated by it and sharing it. This certainly has been our longest Do Resources interview ever. And I've enjoyed all the ones I've done, but I think, I don't know, because we have a friendship as well, we got really involved. But thank you so much for sharing everything.
Thanks for having me. This was super fun.
If anybody actually has watched this 49-minute video, thank you so much for paying attention, and feel free to message us at Do Resources any questions. I may cut this into 2 parts. I'm not sure. But anyway, thank you.